What's up, guys? I'm Shrey Slada, and I have my guy Carter Stanley, and it's another episode of Rock Chalk Film Room. It's the last game of the regular season for Kansas football. It's a big one. Kansas wins. They beat Baylor. They've done the improbable, what seemed once impossible, and made a bowl game. That means 4 straight wins to end the year. And this Baylor team is red hot, 5-0 in the last 5 games. They've also on a 5-game winning streak. But honestly, Kansas has kind of been streak breakers. I mean, they beat Colorado that won 4 straight. They ended BYU's perfect season. There's a lot on the line, and I think this is a really interesting matchup for both sides. And fun fact, Kansas has never won in Waco, 0-10 all time.
Yeah, no, KU is we're finally seeing the team that, I think we all expected to see preseason, and, definitely better late than never. That's for sure. Albeit still a little disappointing that it's, the first half of the season went the way it did, but that's behind us now. And they have an opportunity to do what many people thought was well out of the picture. And, that's win 4 straight and get to a bowl game. So definitely a big matchup against Baylor. Like Shreya's, like you said, 5 straight for the Bears, and they're averaging 40 points a game during that stretch. They've gone to some of the toughest places to play in the Big 12 on the road and hung half 100 on some good teams. So this Baylor team is definitely interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of nuts, and I think they're a really balanced team on offense. I think we'll talk about it, and you'll see here. I think they're averaging like 240 yards passing and another 180 yards on the ground, and I think they're top 30 in the nation points per game. It's just going to be really interesting to see how they match with the Kansas team because, like I think you mentioned it, they don't really have necessarily like a superstar player on offense. They're just really balanced across the board.
Totally. Yeah, definitely balanced. And, unironically, their offensive system is definitely similar to KU's. Obviously, we got Jeff Grimes. Jeff Grimes. Jeff Grimes as our offensive coordinator coming from Baylor. They like to do a lot of spread, definitely spread concept, but similar to KU, they want to establish the run first, that's for sure. And this guy right here, number 30, their main running back, really good back. Honestly, I think as far as play style, I think he's pretty similar to Devin Neal. I don't think he's as good of a football player as Devin Neal, which isn't a knock. Yeah. That's tough to match. But he's a good back. He's averaging 5.7 yards a carry, and their offensive line definitely does a good job. As you can see in this play, running back gets about 30 yards before he's even touched. So I think they're going to rely on the run to start, but then this quarterback here, he's a Mississippi State transfer, Sawyer Robertson, and he's definitely a good player as well. He's got some moxie, and he's pretty composed. He's got a good touchdown to interception ratio, and does a good job of just distributing to all the guys. Like you said, it's not one main guy that he's thrown to. Very different than last week, what we saw with Colorado. But I think they definitely have a good balance on offense.
Yeah, and I think Sawyer is also a kind of an interesting dual threat. He's put up 4 touchdowns on the ground, another almost 300 yards rushing. So he's not obviously rushing every time, but there is that capability, and Kansas has struggled at times this season to stop quarterbacks that have that dual threat ability. I think it's going to be really interesting to see how KU goes about this, because we saw against Colorado, they really didn't do a great job of getting pressure to Shedeur Sanders, except for a couple of key moments. Right. And Kansas won because they won that shootout. I think it ended up being they did a good job on Colorado. I think the Colorado scored the least amount of points they've scored all year, but it didn't feel like that whole game the defense was in control except for like 1 or 2 drives.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think similar, game plan for this week, honestly. Like this Baylor offense, don't get me wrong, like we mentioned, they averaging 40 points a game in their 5-game win streak, and they've been really explosive. But all in all, they're not as explosive as that Colorado offense we just faced. that being said, I think offensively, we still need to focus on controlling the clock, definitely feeding Neal as much as possible. I'm hoping Devin gets another game with 25 plus carries and, 200 yards and whatnot. But, I think it is important for sure for KU to establish the run game offensively and control the time of possession, because we did a great job of that against Colorado. And, when you're playing an explosive offense, I mean, it's just a simple fact, the least or the lesser plays that they have, like, better chance you have of winning the game.
Yeah, and just talking about that Colorado or the Kansas offense versus the Baylor defense, what have you seen from this Baylor defense? Kind of looking on film.
Yeah, so they're really athletic. I mean, for as long as I've been affiliated with KU, Baylor's just had some freaks on their team. I think this team not as athletic as we've seen in the last 5 to 10 years, but definitely athletic. And they got some really good guys up front, defensive linemen, big guys that are athletic, really good at shedding blocks and making plays in the run game, but then also rushing the passer. And, this clip right here just kind of shows they're more than capable of being able to rush only 3 guys. They don't get pressure on this clip, but, they do most of the time, and drop 8 guys into coverage. And for KU and Jaylen, when you're in a situation like this, you're down 10 points, but it's the third quarter, there's 4 minutes left, 2nd and 14. There's no need to force this ball here. This quarterback for Tech, he's trying to throw a whole shot in between a cloud safety and a low corner, and just one of those plays where you got to live to see another down. And whether that's a check down to Devin Neal or, Jaylen Daniels taking off and scrambling, it's one of those situations where you can't force things against this defense.
Yeah, I think that's something Jaylen Daniels has done a tremendous job of, especially in the last couple of games, is he's not forcing the ball. He's not forcing the issue. I think that's something that we felt like we saw a lot of that out of him in these first, 5 games of the season. We felt like, what is he doing? Why is he forcing the ball in the tight window? He's doing things that you feel like maybe he shouldn't be doing. And I feel like maybe there's 1 or 2 throws a game where I'm like, okay, that could have been a little questionable. But I feel a lot more confident in Jaylen Daniels' abilities to put the ball in a tight window than I did in the first 5 weeks of the season. I think he seems like he's fully healed from that injury. I feel like the rehab process has gone well enough, and it clearly seems like it was just an adjustment period for him between the offense changing with Jeff Grimes being the new offensive coordinator and him coming back from a pretty tough injury last year.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. He's playing with a lot more conviction as of recently, and it doesn't seem aggressive. Like there's only a few plays, very little plays a game where he goes for an aggressive type of play, whether that's in the pass game or maybe a late pitch on speed option that gives me a heart attack. But no, all in all, he's playing very controlled and within the system, and he looks more comfortable now than honestly maybe ever. So it's really good to see.
Yeah, I'm excited to see this matchup for him and just the rest of the Jayhawks, because this is such an important game in the sense of not just a completion of turning a season around that began with such high expectations and maybe hasn't quite lived up to it, but there's going to be a lot of guys graduating at the end of this year. I know they want to end the season on a good note and end their career on a good note. And being the Jayhawk squad to go to 3 straight bowl games, something Kansas has never done, is something I know a lot of these guys take a lot of pride in, from Devin Neal to Jaylen Daniels to whoever. We don't know if Jaylen Daniels is coming back or not. He walked on senior day. He mentioned he did it because he was graduating this year. But it'll be interesting to see what happens in this offseason. But, just first and foremost, they have to win on Saturday.
Yeah. No, you only get one shot at it, and they've obviously done an incredible job to put themselves in this situation the past 3 weeks. And, I couldn't be more proud of that senior group and really everyone with the program just to handle business last 3 weeks. And, I think those seniors, they're going to be, on their last breath with this game on Saturday, giving it their all. And there's definitely some other motivations in there too. Jeff Grimes versus his former team and former employer. So, I think he'll be amped up, and, just to be able to finish 4 straight wins in the regular season and get a chance to go to a bowl game, like you said, for the 3rd year in a row, that's huge in itself. So definitely looking forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Should be a good one. Thank you guys for listening in, following us on Rock Show Film Movie about the year, and excited to kind of see what happens Saturday. Thanks, guys.